one of my favorite activities is just simply chopping apples up into different fraction amounts and getting students to write those fractions on their mini whiteboards. And the reason why I like it with the apples, not only can we share the apples at the end, but when I'm cutting up apples, it's easy for the students to clearly see what the one whole is because they know what a whole apple looks like. So for example, if I start with 2 apples and cut them into halves, it's really easy to see that I have 3 halves and that I could write that as 1 whole apple plus 1 half. Whereas if I did the same thing with rectangles, yeah, technically it's the same. I've got 2 rectangles. I could break both those rectangles into halves. And then I could say, well, I've got 3 of those halves. So we can see all together that it is 1 and a half. But at the same time, there's nothing about this rectangle in particular that suggests that it should be 1 whole. Just by nature, it's a bit more abstract. So by keeping it into the concrete with the apples, it's really obvious what you're dealing with. And just that experience that all students have had eating plenty of apples makes a difference. And so then you can start doing things. So here I've got my 2 halves. I can halve that apple again to make my quarters. So now that I know my whole has been split up into 4 equal parts, you might then hold up this to the students and say, can you write this as a fraction? And then they'll write 3/4. Or then if I went and got my 4 quarters that make a whole and 1 more quarter, you might ask them to write that down as a fraction. And as they're going, some students will make mistakes, but then you can get them to share and show their boards. Then you can begin to move them from the physical real-world application, in this case, having my apple cut into quarters, into that more abstract thinking. So you might say, I've got 6 quarters here. Can you show that and represent that using 2 rectangles? For example, like this, where you might talk about the different representations that we can have 6 quarters, or we can write it as 1 whole and 2 quarters, or we can simplify that down to be 1 whole and a half. All these 3 representations equal the same amount or have the same value. Then at the end, you might need to go down to 8s, or depending on how many apples you got, and share them out for a little bite to eat. Go math it up.